Hello, Cybersecurity Law class, and welcome to the final lecture in our class module on computer crimes. For this lecture, I'm going to show you a couple of external videos. The first video is by someone named Mark Goodman, and he wrote a book and has a website called Future Crimes. It's very well worth looking at his book and his website if you want to at some point. In this video, which is a relatively brief TED Talk, he talks about the way in which criminals, and in particular the way in which terrorists, use the internet and related tools in the conduct of crime. And I think if you listen to some of his discussions of his experiences in terrorist incidents, it's pretty sobering. And one of the things that I'd like you to think about as you look at these videos and read through the materials that I gave you to read for this class is the relationship of terrorism to computer crime and how much that complicates the law enforcement picture and the international cooperation picture. And we'll pick that theme up if you take the national security class module next semester. We'll pick that theme up again and see how that continues to overlap. The second video is from a conference sponsored by Kaspersky Labs, and I'm showing you the second segment of a group of panelists who are involved in international law enforcement and international organizations such as Interpol and the International Telecommunications Union. If you want to watch the first segment, it's available on YouTube. The second segment is actually more relevant to the international computer law, criminal law issues that we're talking about, but the first segment is interesting as well. But as you watch this segment, which is about a half hour or so long, I want you to keep in mind, again, some of the things we looked at in the readings and some of the difficulties with international enforcement of computer crime. First of all, the fact that large-scale computer crime is international. Secondly, the fact that it's difficult to attribute. So we have problems of attribution. Third, the fact that it's difficult to collect and gather evidence. When you're dealing with cross-border issues, you have different standards for obtaining warrants, whether you need a warrant, what kind of information you can get. And notice that a number of these panelists talk about wanting some kind of internationalized procedure for obtaining electronic evidence. And think about, from the perspective of our own American constitutional system, what kind of difficulties an international system like that might pose. Think also about when they're talking about institutions, what kind of institution should enforce international criminal procedure? Should there be a separate international institution? Should it be something through the UN? One of the materials I gave you to read was a proposed UN treaty on computer crime. One thing you should know about that proposed treaty is it's not a formal proposal in the UN. It is a proposal by a judge who is connected to the UN, who is very interested in these issues. I don't think anyone is seriously considering adopting anything like that anytime soon, but there are at least some ideas out there that there ought to be an international internet or computer criminal court. So think about what kinds of issues that would raise in terms of national sovereignty, political rights, human rights. You can see in that proposed treaty that I gave you to read, there are some articulations of the rights of the accused. Well, how would those relate to, again, the kinds of rights that we think of in the American constitutional system? And then as you're watching this second video, this Kaspersky video, think about the issue of code and community. And this goes all the way back to our Foundations of Internet Governance course. But notice how each of the speakers in their own way talks about the fact that the internet developed from the ground up as an open system, primarily governed to the extent it was governed by code, and how that has provided a lot of benefits, but how also that provides opportunities for security holes. And how do you deal with that? Can you rely on the engineer community, or does law need to step in? Notice that there are some suggestions throughout the conversation in that Kaspersky video of things like an international internet ID, the kinds of things that we talked about in our Foundations of Internet Governance course. So these issues of security and crime, and as they relate to terrorism in particular too, raise all of these deep issues about governance that we talked about in the first module. So I hope you enjoy these videos, and I will see you next week.